This is WJAR TV, Providence. Now, from Southern New England's leading news station, Doug White, Larry Estepa, Gary Lay, and Frank Carpano. This is NewsWatch 10, the 6 o'clock report.
How do you feel, Mr. Bülow?
Oh, I'm very relieved, and above all, I'm grateful to my attorneys, literally all of whom are here today, except for some of Alan's team in the appeal. But it's their work, and I'm very grateful to everyone, and I'm grateful to everybody in Providence who's shown me courtesy and kindness and wished me good luck all the time I've been here.
Good evening. After nearly 8 weeks of testimony and 4 days of deliberations, a jury of 8 women and 4 men found Claus von Bülow not guilty of twice trying to kill his wife, Sonny.
We have a series of reports for you tonight on the von Bülow verdicts, starting with our I-Team reporter, Jim Taracani, who, as you know, covered the whole trial for us. Jim?
Well, Doug, the waiting is finally over. For von Bülow, the waiting began about 5 years ago when he was first indicted on the attempted murder charges. He was convicted once on those charges. He appealed and got a new trial. The trial that ended today in Providence Superior Court. Shortly before 11:30 this morning, Claus von Bülow heard the words he's been waiting to hear for a long, long time.
Formally the case of Stereo versus Claus von Bülow, N1-81118, as the count one on the charge the defendant committed on December 27, 1979, the crime of assault, intent to murder. How do you find? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
As you count 2 on the charge the defendant committed on December 21st, 1980, the crime of assault, intent to murder. How do you find? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
His girlfriend, Andrea Reynolds, started to cry and was speechless. Von Bülow and his defense team held a brief news conference following the verdict. Then von Bülow and his lawyers came to our studios to tape an exclusive interview. Since it's all over now, can you tell us anything about your version, in simple terms perhaps, of what did happen to Sonny von Bülow, your wife?
I don't know. I know that I'm totally convinced by the medical picture. I know I didn't do anything.
Von Bülow's attorneys, Thomas Puccio, John Sheehan, and Peter DiBiase, all said they thought Judge Grandy did a fine job, and they praised the prosecutors for the job they did. Prosecutor Mark DeSisto had this to say about the not guilty verdicts.
We tried as hard as we could. We did the best we could. And I think we ought to leave it with what the jury decided.
What effect is this?
Attorney General Arlene Violet had very little to say about the not guilty verdicts. Specifically, she said, quote, "I have no comment. This trial is like any other," end quote. Von Bülow's attorneys praised Judge Corinne Grandy for conducting what they say was a very fair trial, and the defense team had nothing but praise for prosecutors Henry Gemma and Mark DeSisto. Immediately following this newscast at 6:30, we'll air a special half-hour exclusive interview with Claus von Bülow and his attorneys. Doug, the interview offers some insights into Claus von Bülow and what he's been doing over the past several weeks.
Generally, what kinds of things does he talk about?
He opened up about his job, about how he felt about the trial. He talks quite a bit about Sonny and what possibly could have happened to her, and just life in general. He was very relaxed and obviously in a very good mood. We think an interesting interview, so tune in at 6:30.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Devastated. That's how Claus von Bülow's 2 stepchildren reacted to the not guilty verdict today. NewsWatch 10 reporter Frank Coletta says the stepchildren, Alec Eisel and Alexander von Auersperg, are also very bitter.
The bitterness came through loud and clear in comments the 2 made about Claus von Bülow. We have been advised not to air those comments because they may be libelous. We can perhaps best paraphrase those comments by saying Alex and Alla do not believe that the not guilty verdict represents the truth. When asked if they thought their comments were libelous, Alla said,
I really don't know if it's libelous. It's simply the way we feel.
As for their reaction to the verdict,
We are disappointed with the jury's verdict, but we know that this jury was not permitted to hear all of the evidence that was admitted at the first trial.
We firmly believe that had they been able to hear all of the evidence that was heard during the first trial, that their decision would have been different.
the 2 stepchildren also criticized trial judge Corinne Grandy for not allowing more of that evidence from the first trial.
I think she was pro-defense.
Why?
I think a lot of evidence that should have come into this trial that was admitted at the first trial, I think that the fact that it was kept out of this trial really crippled this case.
Several times during this news conference, the stepchildren expressed a willingness to reconcile with their half-sister, Cosima. But that willingness to reconcile apparently does not extend to their father.
Earlier today, when von Bülow was asked if he might ever reconcile with Alex and Alla, von Bülow said, "I don't see why not." But the two stepchildren apparently don't share that sentiment. When she was asked if she would ever see Claus von Bülow again, Alla said,
I doubt it.
Frank Coletta, NewsWatch 10, at the Von Bülow Media Center in Providence.
Dennis Roberts was Attorney General during von Bülow's first trial in 1982. That time, as you know, von Bülow was convicted of trying to murder his wife. According to Roberts, the difference in this trial probably was the jury. He told NewsWatch 10 reporter Tim Carr the evidence in this case was just as good as in the first trial.
What's important to one jury might be unimportant to another jury. The fact is that in this particular case, the jury obviously found some reason to find a reasonable doubt as to Mr. von Bülow. Now, it's important, I think, for our viewers to note that being found not guilty because there is a reasonable doubt is a long way from being found innocent.
Roberts commended the attorneys in the case and said he has learned as a lawyer never to be surprised by a verdict. Doug?
Rhode Islanders and people from all around the world, for that matter, have been watching the von Bülow trial with a great deal of interest. NewsWatch 10's Tim Carr reports for us now. Now that it's over, there's mixed reaction to the verdicts.
When the jury emerged from the courthouse, the crowd cheered, many yelling, "Good job." There was little or no reaction from the jurors. The crowd's reaction was much the same as Claus von Bülow left the courthouse. People were clamoring to get a look at the man who had dominated the 6 o'clock news and was probably the subject of many supper-time discussions. While it seems most of those who showed up outside the courthouse were in favor of von Bülow's acquittal, there were some here who weren't.
I think he was guilty.
You think he was definitely guilty?
I think so. I think they didn't hear a lot of things that was in the first trial that they didn't bring out in this trial, especially the motive. I was surprised she wouldn't allow that. His hands are cleaned. I can't see it. What's justice?
But this pair was delighted with the verdict.
I feel fantastic that he was found innocent.
Why?
Because I don't think there was enough evidence to convict him.
I heard it on TV in the house, and I come running down here. I was so happy for the man.
Well, the bottom line is he's innocent, and
we're happy
he's free, and that's great.
Tim Carr, NewsWatch 10, Providence.
Jurors in the von Bülow trial get to spend a normal evening now with their families and friends. They get to talk freely about anything they choose. But as NewsWatch 10's Sylvia Gambardella found out, the verdict and the trial are topics they're avoiding, at least for now.
Yes, I do. Shortly after the verdict was announced, family members began arriving at the Holiday Inn where the jury stayed throughout the trial.
We've been married 36 years, and I don't think we've ever been separated more than 5 days, so it's been a long while.
For reporters and cameramen outside, it was a waiting game, waiting and hoping for any comment from jurors inside, but that was not to be.
But as reporters waited outside for the jurors to appear on the 14th floor of the Holiday Inn, jurors were toasting the trial's end with bottles of champagne, compliments of the hotel management.
It's a very happy, pleasant feeling, like a family picnic with people that they haven't seen each other for a long time.
Several jurors, including foreman Robert Rocchio, left quickly through the garage of the hotel without a comment to anxious reporters. At mid-afternoon, to the surprise of the media waiting outside the hotel, a cab pulled up and Claus von Bülow and girlfriend Andrea Reynolds stepped out.
I've come to thank the jurors for the time they spent.
Von Bülow spent several minutes to thank the jury and then left. Excused juror Donna Palreiro saw it all.
They were glad that they were there, and they were glad he came up to thank them personally, or to thank us personally.
Sylvia Gambardella, NewsWatch 10, Providence.
And that wraps up this portion of the 6 o'clock News Watch. Thank you very much for joining us.
Coming up next, a NewsWatch 10 exclusive, reporter Jim Taracani talks with Claus von Bülow and his attorney. That's coming up right after this break. Then Nightly News will air at 7 o'clock tonight. Please stay with us. Have a good evening.